pretty nicely on schedule, so we'll start in about a minute or two. Let's see.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Peter, are you in the Netherlands or are you in San Francisco?
I am in the Netherlands, but I will be back in San Francisco in a few weeks for the holidays and everything. So that will be great.
Good afternoon and good evening then in this case. So good to see you. I see everybody sort of coming in. I'm looking at Justine and Lot. Are we good to go? All right, I'm getting the thumbs up. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the third session of the Road to LA program. Welcome or good morning to all our LA participants who are here in great numbers. It makes me very happy that we've been able to put together such a strong collective of people in a relatively short time frame. And I'll be thanking some of the MWD contacts that have been participating with us later for that as well. My name is Arjan Braamskamp. I'm the Regional Director for North and South America for NWP, and which also includes Country Manager in this case for the United States as part of the Partners for Water program, of which this is a joint effort. Luckily, I've not been alone in this, so I've had a lot of help from amongst others, Peter at the MBSO and Milan at the MBSO in Los Angeles, who are here with us today. As well as Jan Top. I don't see him in my screen, but there's a lot of people in the room now, so I'm sure he's here somewhere. From the consulate in San Francisco, the Consul General, Dirk Jansen, is here as well, who I'll introduce in a second. And of course, the help that we have gotten from our One Architecture co-collaborators, Justine and Lot, who will also get a chance to introduce themselves. Quick household rules for those of you who are doing a webinar for the very first time. I sincerely hope that's not true, because then I don't know what you've been doing the last year. But nonetheless, if you're not speaking, please keep your audio off. And also, if we want videos on or turned on or off, we will let you know throughout the process. Other than that, there's a recording going on. We have already started it, but we do need to alert you. If this is in one way or another a problem for you, then please let Justine know in a private message, and then we can take action accordingly. That's as much as detail as I can give you there, because I really don't know what that action is, but Justine is an expert in handling in these matters, so I'm sure she'll be able to figure it out. We started this process, this Road to LA initiative, because we wanted to see what the opportunities were in the Los Angeles market, and we wanted to serve some of our Dutch companies with smart innovations and technologies that were expressing interest in the Los Angeles, greater Los Angeles area. And most of these companies already have a very strong background, a very strong approach, a very strong strategy that allows them to individually enter the US market. But we were looking for a way to sort of reinforce that by creating a collective in which we can learn from each other, help each other in terms of defining what our unique value proposition is for the market, and how that ties into the opportunities and the demand that is there in Los Angeles, which most of you know more about than I do, and you know, which is exactly the reason why we're so happy that you're here with us today. We've done 2 sessions already before this. The first one was really to sort of find our own identity and determine what our value proposition would be in this case, for the West Coast California LA market. And a second session in which, after we thought we had that figured out, the value proposition, which is of course sort of an ongoing process, really sort of trying to see, okay, what does that demand look like in the market? We had a chance to bring in some of the people from the MWD who sort of got us started on that, or continuing on that road that we had turned onto. And now we are in the third session, where we're really sort of trying to bring things together and really look at some topic-specific and project-specific opportunities and more interaction based on that. I think that really sort of is enough for me to do the kickoff here. Also, in the interest of time, I would like to introduce the Consul General, Mr. Dirk Jansen, who is representing the 13 Western states on behalf of the Kingdom of the Netherlands here in San Francisco. Good morning, Dirk. Briefly about the background, a lengthy career starting in the private sector, but then quickly moving into the public sector, the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs. There are some postings as well in The Hague, but also in Panama before arriving on the West Coast. And a strong academic background in business economics, industrial organization, and European competition law. So when I saw that, now I'm kind of sad that we didn't bring the Consul General in earlier. We could have benefited from some of that knowledge. So hopefully we'll be able to do that moving forward. Married, 2 kids, and he's here with us today. So I'll leave it there for a brief bio and I'll give you the floor, Consul General.
Thank you so much, Arjan, for your kind words. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the very first water charrette between Los Angeles and the Netherlands as part of the Road to LA trajectory. As Consul General, I'm often part of diplomatic bilaterals, round tables, fireside chats, etc. But I must admit that this is my first charrette. To be honest, I did not even know what it was. They told me it's an architectural term to refer to an intense collaborative design session. So you're never too old to learn. Today's charrette should help us find solutions for both too much and too little water, challenges that are known all too well, both in the Netherlands and Los Angeles. So we're here to exchange about water challenges and opportunities on both sides of the Atlantic. And hopefully we will also come to some insights on how we can make this a longer term partnership between LA and the Netherlands. Now, what is the Road to LA trajectory? Arjan said already a little bit about it. It's a cooperation between Dutch companies with a proposition on water related to challenges in LA. And the proposition was developed through several workshops and sessions led by One Architecture of Matthijs Bouw. Great to see you again, by the way, Matthijs, after the work we did together in Panama all those years ago. Now, the lead up to this charrette started with a fruitful meeting we had in June with different water agencies in LA at the impressive water treatment plant in Carson. And our exchange on the topic there was I think, exciting and educational, and it really inspired us to explore ways to work on solutions together. But the dialogue on water between the Netherlands and LA has been going on for a few years already. We've organized several missions and dialogues focusing on water in LA. And just 2 weeks ago, the Dutch Vice Minister of Infrastructure and Water Management, Roald Laperre, he was here and he had the opportunity to meet with the management of the Metropolitan Water District and also with Wade Crowfoot, the California Secretary of Natural Resources. And of course, I do want to mention the Netherlands Business Support Office that we opened in LA last year. They are working very hard to further strengthen the relationship and the partnership on water and a lot of different topics between our country and LA. So I think it's safe to say that our cooperation has been accelerating over the last few years, and today we hope to take a next step. We will be focusing on multiple themes: actionable data and analysis, resilient coastal zones, water infrastructure and transport, social and urban resilience, water source management, and wastewater treatment. So we have a lot of ground to cover today. And our ambition is to think global, act local, and to ensure clean water and safe cities for all. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing your ideas, and I wish you a very successful charrette.
Thank you very much, Dirk. Thank you very much, Consul General. Much appreciated. Let's see if this is sort of a brief outline on what we're going to do. I just want to walk us through it before I have a chance to introduce some of our Los Angeles counterparts. This is what we're doing right now. Obviously, the welcome messages. After that, we'll give the floor to the LA contingency in the room, headed up by John Arena. And then we'll have a chance to do a brief introduction of the Dutch delegation. This is not going to be very extensive, but we've asked them to do 1 slide, 1 minute pitches on their specific companies. Most of you in the room have already been at previous events as well, so this will be more of a refresher course and also just an opportunity to create some baseline information for everybody else new in the room. Then I will be able to give the floor to Justine and to Lot from One Architecture, who have been the facilitators and the driving force behind this charrette for today, and they will walk us a little bit through the format. Also, in full disclosure, also my first charrette, so it's kind of exciting all around. After that, we'll have a number of breakouts with a coffee break and some regroup sessions in between. The breakout session will be divided into 3 blocks. Each block will cover 2 topics, and you will make choices for which breakout session you will want to attend. So we'll have 2 topics always running parallel, and we do that 3 times. When that happens, you'll be able to indicate either through the chat or by changing your name which breakout room you would like to be involved in, and then we will move you in that room as you go. After the 3rd breakout, we will get some impressions from some of the people in the room about the breakouts, about the overall process, before we get to our closing remarks and really sort of looking backwards, but more than anything, also looking forwards about, okay, what does this mean? What have we accomplished? And where do we go from here? So that's briefly the agenda. Justine, did I cover everything there?
Yes, all good.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I couldn't see you there anymore with the way my screen was set up. So now that allows me to give the floor to our counterparts on the LA side. We have, throughout the process, we've really been able to connect with the Metropolitan Water District, and John Arena has been at the forefront of this process and engaging the people on his side. He's the business outreach program manager, and he heads up the team that has partnered with us in developing the workshop. John, thank you for all your constructive and encouraging input throughout this process. And I want to give you the floor so that you can introduce some of your co-collaborators on your side.
Thank you so much, Arjan. Good morning, everyone. And Council General, I was the same. When they mentioned Charrette, I instantly had to Google it, figure out what that was, what I was getting ourselves into. But the journey, the road to LA has been incredibly rewarding for me personally, for the staff involved in Metropolitan. It really is about those challenges that we're facing in California. You know, just up the road today, our chairwoman and our board members and many of our leaders at Metropolitan are in Pasadena, just north of Los Angeles, and at a very large water conference, and they're dealing with some issues in water that are unprecedented with the drought and climate change and other issues. And that's why events like this are so important for us to come together and collaborate and to share best practices. I've been Metropolitan for 25 years, and it's been an incredible career and journey. Metropolitan, you know, it's an iconic image. It's people know us as, you know, a lot of people say, you know, the largest wholesaler in the United States. We're working with international utilities on, again, sharing and talking about challenges. But at the end of the day, what I've learned is it's about the people. And today we're so fortunate to have so many subject matter experts from Metropolitan, from the LA County Public Works, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. We have top leaders who are about to speak, and I'm going to introduce to you to share a little bit about our challenges and what our agencies do for the 20 million people in Southern California. Today, again, we've been on this journey. We've had several meetings with a lot of the Dutch companies, but what's really special about a lot of the companies we've talked to is they want to be part of the solution. You know, they have innovative ideas, and it's about working together and providing that feedback back to them. And with that, I just want to close by saying that the Netherlands staff, you know, it's been just such a pleasure to work with them. They're so encouraging, so positive. We always have a good laugh on our meetings. It's but at the end of the day, I know it's about providing opportunities and solutions for our industry. I do want to thank my team, my innovation team, Wiggs Mendoza, Peggy Vogt, and Warren Teitz. They are just instrumental at Metropolitan on bringing people together and facilitating exchanges. Again, like I said earlier, we have so many subject matter experts within Metropolitan and the other utilities here today in the breakout rooms. So I know it's going to be a fruitful discussion, and I'm excited about the day. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Shane Chapman. He's the Assistant General Manager at Metropolitan, and he leads our water systems operations. Now, that's no small task. We're the United States' largest wholesaler of water. He also heads up our information technology group, real property, and security. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Shane to share a few words. Shane?
Thank you, John.
There he is.
Yep, I'm here. Well, hearty good morning and welcome and good health to all. I see a lot of familiar faces and some I look forward to meeting in person in the future. These kind of events are very exciting. I appreciate, and all of us at Met appreciate the opportunity and the collaboration and the communication that flows from them. Want to thank the Council General and the partnership and the delegation for their effort and their partnership. It's been very fruitful so far, and I see a lot of benefit flowing from it, mutual benefit in the future. Also want to thank our long-term partners, without which we would not be in as good a shape as we are today, even as severe as things are currently with the water supply conditions in California. We've got with us today, as John mentioned, and you saw there on the slide, Los Angeles County Public Works, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, and the Los Angeles County Sanitation District. And combined with Metropolitan and all of the other water entities in the county and throughout Southern California, it goes without saying, nothing works without the communication and the collaboration that this charrette is an example of. And we continually work with these partners to solve these challenges, whether it be with managing floodwater. Council General mentioned having too much. We do occasionally experience that. We miss it a little bit right now. And Department of Public Works and Water and Power and Sanitation District, they're all key partners in what we're calling right now the Regional Recycled Water Program, which is probably the best example of collaboration, cooperation, innovation going in Southern California right now. It's going to take all of these entities, Metropolitan and the rest of the 26 member agencies, to come together to pull off what could be one of the larger recycled water programs projects in the United States. There's a very successful one in Orange County, and we're looking to replicate that experience on the Los Angeles and the San Gabriel River. So with that, I'll turn it back to the agenda and help catch up on a little bit of time here. But again, it's good seeing familiar faces, and I look forward to meeting the rest of you in the future as this continues.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works, Mark Pastrella. He is the Director of Los Angeles County Public Works. In this capacity, he serves as the county engineer, the county road commissioner, and chief engineer of Los Angeles County Flood Control District. They have an annual budget of $2.7 billion and a workforce of 4,000 employees. Los Angeles County Public Works is the largest municipal public works agency in the United States. Please welcome Mr. Pastrella.
Well, thank you very much. It's let me see, did I unmute myself? Looks like I did. Looks like I'm speaking. Can somebody acknowledge that they can hear me so I know that I'm being heard?
We can hear you, Mark.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. And Council General, once again, it's great seeing you. I see in the background you've got the iconic, San Francisco image there. But I also know that your homeland in the Netherlands is such a special place to you too, and it's a special place to us in the partnership with the country, the Netherlands. And I want to thank you and the Dutch government for reaching out and continuing to reach out and create this collaboration. It's actually created a great opportunity to further strengthen the partnership of the agencies that you see that are participating here today, from locally from LA County, as well as from the state, and along with Metropolitan Southern California region. It reminds us that that water is a common thread throughout the world in our lives. that this commonality is what drives like human life. And so how we handle that and the obligation we have to do to handle that in an efficient way, in a way that addresses human needs is important. And I think the Charrette is a good example of us sharing and that knowledge, and again, meeting that obligation to meet the needs of humankind when it comes to water. I know those are big words, but it is important. And I think you see the implications of the challenges on our water throughout the world, but particularly here in Los Angeles County, when we talk about the challenges that we're facing. As has been discussed by each agency, and I want to also thank, of course, my partner agencies, Metropolitan Water District, LA County Sanitation District, who's not here today, but who's certainly a part of the partnership, LA Sanitation, LA DWP, for their long-term relationship and their long-term partnership in dealing with it perfectly described, either too much or too little water impacting Los Angeles County. For those of you that don't know the county or sort of our role here, you've got representation essentially from the Southern California region with Metropolitan Water District covering the vast majority of the Southern California region. You have our department representing the county, the largest county population-wise, and one of 58 counties in the state of California. And of course, the county of Los Angeles is again the largest in terms of population with 10 million residents and over 4,000 square miles covered by the county. And then we have the units of the city of Los Angeles, and being the largest municipal water agency in I believe in the United States. They'll probably correct me on that if I'm not right. And then having the special districts of the county of LA Sanitation District that covers the city's area as well. Of course, governance is probably the biggest issue. I've always said that's probably the biggest issues in delivering safe, clean, and reliable water to the communities that we serve. And what I mean by why that's so is that the water has been split up amongst political sectors and also by special districts. In fact, many of you may not be aware of this, but there's over 200 water retailers just in the county of Los Angeles alone. My agency running the third largest retailer, the LA County Waterworks District, we serve over 250,000 people water on a daily basis. And of course, the city being the largest, and of their large population, over 3 million people that they serve. So it's a complex system that we're all working on. But again, it's critical to the lives and well-being of everyone here in the county of Los Angeles. The county plays also the role of setting the water policy for the county at large. We are doing that through the adoption of a series of documents. One that's very special to us is the adoption of our sustainability plan in 2019. It covers the region. It has multiple sectors that it addresses, and its approach is to improve the health and quality of life in the communities of Los Angeles County. We define sustainability in the county as the balance between the environment, equity, and the economy. Some specific sector-specific drivers in our sustainability plan when it comes to resiliency is to manage our regional groundwater basins and incentivize water conservation and stormwater retrofits. Develop a local water supply plan. And this is an ongoing plan that our department is leading. It's called the LA County Water Plan, which will encompass all those 200 water retailers' needs. Metropolitan will be inputting to it as well. And it will provide for a roadmap for the County of Los Angeles and Board of Supervisors and what to invest in when it comes to water in the future. We're working on groundwater management, identifying and developing, enhancing resilient water sources, watershed land management, infrastructure resiliency, and drinking water equity. All very large scale, but very important and pertinent subjects and focus areas for the County of Los Angeles, again, as the entity that seeks to set county water policy now and in the future. My department, again, being the chief engineer of the flood control district and the water manager over the water district, we're focused on safe, clean, and reliable water for our communities. We've been focusing on groundwater management for a long time, and our role there is to capture almost a third of the water supply for LA County via a system of dams and reservoirs, as well as spreading grounds, and including our latest program, the Safe Clean Water Program, which actually goes down almost to the dosing level of water conservation by capturing water on private property, single lot, as well as neighborhood level, and converting that water into usable water someday by infiltrating it into the ground or through a series of backbone infrastructure that we maintain and operate. This is interesting times for water in our world. It's been water has always been critical to life, and it's interesting times with respect to the climate impacts. Climate impacts that we see for our region include, higher temperatures, less frequent rainfall, more high intensity rainfall. It kind of goes to that theme again. We either have too much or too little all the time, and we're seeing that same pattern of too much or too little pretty much intensify with climate and climate change. Then there's all the ancillary impacts of climate on our water system and then the environment. And even recently, as many of you know, we've had a recent event in the Dominguez Channel, Carson area, where we know that a component of the problem we had is odor incident that occurred in Carson. It was partly caused by the lack of flow in the channel. And that goes back to this, again, effect of climate. Where we're currently experiencing another drought, which is not uncommon for California, but we see these droughts becoming more intense and longer lasting, which is something that concerns all of us. And our response to that is to actually create more storage and reuse of our recycled water to make up for the lost stormwater that we may not be able to capture given the impacts of climate. The last thing yes?
Mark, can I respectfully let you know that you have 1 minute?
Okay, thank you. The last thing, and that's perfect timing, the last thing that I wanted to mention, and is very important here in the United States as well as around the world, is the impact of equity on our decision-making, our investments. LA County seeks to start changing the way we make investments by overlaying an equity lens on all of our infrastructure investments in LA County. And over the next 6 months, our department will be leading the way for the region on defining what equity and infrastructure is, and then again, making more informed decisions about how we invest in throughout our county and our communities with respect to the fair distribution of goods, services, jobs, and projects. It's exciting times again in infrastructure and specifically the sector of water. And I really appreciate the partnership with the Netherlands and with my local agencies as we move forward to solve the problems of today and tomorrow. Again, I'll leave it there, and thank you again for the opportunity to participate.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Next speaker from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power is Anselmo Collins. He's the Senior Assistant General Manager of the Water Systems. He's been with I apologize, sorry. He's been with DWP for 28 years. His experience has been both in engineering and managerial capacities involving planning, design, construction, project management, and procurement, construction management, maintenance. DWP is the largest and most complex municipal water systems in the world. They have an annual budget of $1.5 billion and serve water to 4 million residents in Los Angeles. Please, let's welcome Mr. Anselmo Collins.
Hi, good morning, and thank you very much, John. It's kind of funny that a Metropolitan guy confuses me with a Met employee. That happens a lot over here. DWP and Metropolitan work so closely together that a lot of times nobody knows who you work for. But like John said, Anselmo Collins, I'm very happy to be here. I got to say that when the Council General talked about Panama a couple of times, I got excited because I was born and raised in Panama. So I'm glad to see that he's got some experience working in Panama. Maybe later on we can talk about that a little more. But I wanted to, first of all, thank you for the opportunity for us to participate in this partnership with the Netherlands. DWP is, when it comes to innovation, we've been very big in trying to do more innovation. And I'll talk about some of the challenges that we have in a minute. But when we look at innovation, we're looking at just at innovation locally or within the country, but also internationally, because we want to be able to improve the operational efficiency, the reliability, the infrastructure, and also the customer service that we provide. Some of the avenues that we've taken here at LADWP has been working with MWD on their interagency innovation meetings, also with ILTAG, the Water Research Foundation, and many others. I can tell you that in the last few years, we've been able to work with some international companies on things like our seismic resistant joint pipes, which is a Japanese company called Kubota, our underwater ROV that we use for inspections, Canadian outfit there, also our online water quality monitoring that is from a company in France, as well as some work that we're doing with water reuse technology and operation out of Singapore. So technology has always been a very big part of us. Like I was mentioned before, we are the largest municipal-owned utility in the country. We are water and power. We are over 11,000 employees. But if we focus only on the water system, we are around 2,400 employees in the water system with an annual budget around 1.6 billion. That's for capital and also O&M. Our system is very complex. We have over 7,000 miles of pipe in our system, and we have the benefit of being able to get water from many sources. Unfortunately, most of these sources are imported. So one of the focuses that we have right now is in local water development. And I think that's an area there where we're collaborating pretty much with everybody. Like Shane mentioned at MWD on the recycles front. Also, Mark talked about, stormwater capture. We're looking at our local water development as a very important part of our portfolio moving forward. This happens to be a dry year. We're going into the third dry year next year, and that causes pretty big challenges. So what we're looking at is emphasizing the work that we're doing when it comes to groundwater, stormwater capture, water conservation, and recycled water. And I'm going to touch a little bit on recycled water because this is really, for us, this is our strategic priority. We're looking at working with the LA Sanitation and the Environment folks on developing what we call Operation Next, which is recycling 100% of the effluent from their Hyperion wastewater facility. What that's going to do for LA is provide us access to almost 250,000 acre feet a year of water, of advanced treated recycled water that we're going to be able to use for beneficial use, either to recharge our local groundwater basins or for direct potable reuse by sending it to our LA Aqueduct filtration plant. And the idea is to be able to then commingle that with surface water treated at our filtration plant and reach 70% of our service area. So I think that's going to be an area of a lot of opportunity for innovation. I think the technologies that we're looking at for advanced recycled water obviously is going to be a great area. I know we're talking about source water in this meeting. I think that's going to be obviously an area of big concern that we're going to have to deal with. So I'm looking forward to the collaboration. I'm thankful for the invitation to be here. I know Jonathan Leung, Assistant Director in Water Quality, will be participating. And I just want to say once again, thank you for the invitation. Looking forward to the discussion and the collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Anselmo, from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. If there's one thing you can take away from these incredible leaders in water is that we've got to collaborate to face our challenges, our biggest challenges. And what's exciting about today is opportunity. I think you heard that. There's so many challenges that we just, as utilities, we can't solve them all just internally or even collaborating with each other. We need partners and innovation. With that, this was a real pleasure, again, an honor for me to introduce these leaders in water. Every day I'm humbled by working for Metropolitan Water District. I'd like to turn it over to, I believe, is it Justine and Lot? Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
It was actually Arjen, but I can take the word.
Okay.
After these, is it okay, Arjen?
Yeah, it's fine. I had a 10-minute presentation on everything that you've done in your life, but we'll skip that and we'll go straight into the issue then.
That's absolutely not important at the moment. First of all, my name is Lot Lochar and I'm part of the team for One Architecture and Urbanism. And I'm really thanking you all for inviting us here and being with such a great group here and letting us speak. And on first view, it might be a bit strange that this coalition, which comes from such a different environmental background, is actually thinking that we can contribute to all this LA water challenge we have just heard and all these opportunities we heard. The Netherlands is a very small country, much smaller than LA and your country. It's a low-lying country in Europe, situated at the delta of some major rivers, where the important cities have been established on the natural dams in the rivers. And so at first view, we are very different from LA, less people, different situation. But looking at your water challenges and the ones I heard now also from all the great leaders here, and looking at our water challenge, we see some similarities. And we hope that during this very short introduction, we can make clear why and how we can contribute, and then we can discuss it later in the breakout sessions. Next slide, please. The Netherlands has lived and dealt with water for over 700 years. We are 26% of our countries is under the current sea level, and more than 50% of our country is prone to flooding from rivers and sea. So dealing with water is actually ingrained in our system, in ourselves, in our culture, in our politics. We used to conquer the water, as you can see in these images, which changes the land. We made land from nature and engineered the water for flood protection, for creating more inhabitable space in polders, for making potable water in saline marshland, and for trying to establish the most beneficial water quality for both the surface water, the groundwater, and the potable water, and not only for consumption, but also, of course, also for nature and use in agriculture. However, with the accelerated climate change, and sea level rise and extreme weather events, which have either too little or too much, like you, so loads of drought, heat, and extreme rainfall, and there are land subsidence and the increase in inhabitants in our country, we have created new challenges for our country, and we're trying to deal with them. Next, please. As we lived with water for so long, it is part of our, it has become part of our governance structure. We established a democratic chosen water board 700 years ago, and we have a national Delta program which funds for water safety that are independent of the political cycle for years. So it is really ingrained in the governance structure and in the policies, both in the national policies as the regional policies and the local policies. And of course, working in Delta programs, the various Delta programs on water safety, on water quality, and on climate adaptation, also in the collaboration between the national, the regional, and the local. As you can see here, it has also influenced our culture. We think of ourselves as a water-rich culture. And here you see a picture of our yearly city swim in the canals in Amsterdam. And a couple of 100 years ago, these used to be the most disgusting sewer open canals ever. And only now it has been through a lot of work, has become a good quality of water, even so good that for some you might see it underneath your little own images, that the Queen of the Netherlands dares to take a dive into the water there. Next, please. This living with water hasn't only resulted in a different governance structure and policies and culture, but it has also given space for innovation and development of integrated infrastructure and systems. Integrated in the full water cycle, but also integrated in land use planning and design. And of course, these new challenges of climate change and the impact of that have changed our approach into this infrastructure and to these systems. We're now, over the last years, not only conquering water, but we started giving room for water and nature, giving land back to the water. And we started to integrate large and small-scale green infrastructure within our cities and engineered landscapes. And we started to do that sometimes after floods, and sometimes because we heard and we saw in other countries the floods happening, and decided that we should act proactively to this. Next, please. And we started to look at new technologies and innovative technologies for all the challenges ahead. And of course, not only the challenges of climate change, but also challenges of the sunken, of looking how to use water and the elements in its full circular cycle, with taking out as much as water reuse and other things. And also, of course, of our aging infrastructure, which we also have to deal with in our country, and all the sunken investments in that. Some of the coalition members will definitely explain some of these elements in their products and services later in the presentation and during the breakouts. Next, please. This long history of living with water and the attention and funds for its challenges, because the good thing is that the government has provided different funds for that, is its integration in policy, culture, infrastructure and technology has resulted that the Netherlands are strong and have leadership in the following 3 things we identified. First of all, we have a strong culture and history of innovation, and not only technical innovations, which you will hear a lot also about today, but also social innovation on how to involve all the stakeholders in the water challenges of the country. We have a long history in integrated planning in which water and infrastructure are integrated in land use. And we have a long-term vision to what the future holds. So looking further beyond the lifespan of infrastructure to the longer term, as we are so below the sea level. And we hope that with these strengths, we can contribute to your challenges. Next, please. Our coalition of 8 Dutch firms stemming from this rich water ingrained country all can contribute in their own way. Some, but all can contribute either to the technological innovation, the social innovation, this integrated planning, or both this long history. And people of the firms will introduce themselves shortly afterwards, but we can already say that both the products and services have a wide range, ranging from the topics which are mentioned before, from water source management, a resilient coast, social resilience, to the infrastructure, and also, of course, the data and analytics. But we'll go into that later a bit more. Next, please. Because as we stated, we deal with a lot of challenges in the Netherlands that are relevant also to LA. And actually, even though we have such a different context, the challenges are quite similar. We have a challenge of access to water, dependence also on our imports, with a high energy use, with all, not only for creating potable water, but also for pumping out all this water from all our polders elements. Dependence on the climate change impact. We have, of course, this sunken investment in our grey infrastructure, and the leakage in distribution of aging infrastructure, with all the difficulties of opening all these roads and having all these streets open at the moment that traffic has to go through, and how you manage this. We have the surface water contamination, decreasing groundwater levels, with saltwater intrusion in groundwater, which created huge problems for certain areas of the Netherlands and its agricultural land use. And with that, all these land use plannings. So we hope that we can contribute with our products and services to your challenges with what we have established for our own country. And I would like to give the word now to Justine, so to talk us through what we identified as specific elements with the coalition in the last couple of meetings, and bring forward how this Dutch coalition is especially strong and innovative of.
Thank you, Lot. So, excuse me. We know better than to try to explain the LA water system to a room full of its strongest stakeholders and experts. So I'm just going to speak a little bit about how we've approached this process. Lot and I facilitating and working with the Netherlands Water Partnership, the consulate, the business support office, and all of the coalition members. Our goal through this process has been to learn about the scale and reach of the LA water system, and to try to understand the landscape better through its key components, its programs, processes, most of all its stakeholders. And up until now, we've been looking back, but also looking forward to the coming decades, and exploring the challenges, the urgencies, and opportunities for the water system in all of its parts. So we also recognize in this process that water considerations are inseparable from other decisions that are being made, whether those have to do with land use and development, investment in communities, industries, infrastructure. And I think, we heard at the beginning, equity being a big piece of this as well, that we need to take a closer look at. So I'm an architect, Lot, as well. And I think we bring to this, how do we unpack the challenges and opportunities for water in LA? So we've been trying to do that through these transect drawings, looking first at the natural and stormwater cycle, and trying to understand what are some of the topics and challenges that affect it, what are the stages of the cycle, who are the agencies or stakeholders in this process, and then also how are the firms in this coalition best positioned to look at different stages in the water cycle. And we also do that for potable water and wastewater. So through the conversations we've been having, we came up with, and I think Lot mentioned it already, 6 themes that we feel encapsulate the range of topics that we're interested in exploring as a coalition, and with you today for innovation and integrated planning to ensure reliability. And these are really the structure of the breakouts, and we'll go into this a bit more, but they include for water sources, analyzing sources, optimizing sources, exploring new water sources, and water infrastructure and transport, trying to understand how to ensure resilient assets and reliable infrastructure, but also to optimize repair and replacement strategies, looking at actionable data and analytics, IoT, AI, prediction and simulation. In the resilient coastal zone theme, we're interested in the relationship to nature-based solutions, coastal protection, spatial planning and engagement. In wastewater treatment, we've been looking at resource management, water harvesting, and water quality. And in not least, social and urban resilience. What does that mean for integrated strategies and working with stakeholders? Again, working with nature-based solutions as well as gray infrastructure, and the larger topics of urban resilience planning and engagement for a range of climate challenges and risks. So we hope that in this session today, we can explore these themes further and identify some strong avenues for collaboration. So now we're going to give the word to each of the Dutch firms in the coalition. We are a little behind time, so I'm going to be very aggressive on cutting people off at 1 minute, and we're going to go in alphabetical order. So I will be giving the word first to Acquaint, and you can feel free to just unmute yourself and speak, and I'll advance the slides. Thanks.
Yes, thanks. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I will do my best to keep it in 1 minute. What you see over here is the bow tie. It's quite often used within condition assessments, what we are doing at Acquaint. At the right side, you see some more reactive parts of it. So sensoring and local leaching. Oh, sorry, with that said, positioning of sensors. So, and that's what companies quite do now. What we are doing at Acquaint, it's more on the left side of the bow tie, some more preventive things. So model aging and the preventive side of it. So we developed two main solutions for this. The first one is the Aquarius. It's an inline inspection tool to do condition assessments for pipelines. We do this with ultrasound and would give some results of the water pipelines, of the wall thickness, remaining lifetimes, and some local leaching spots. And we can inspect every materials we want. The second solution we developed is our pipe scanner. It's a do-it-yourself concept we can set up at our companies. The pipeline has to be opened for this measurement, and it has to be take 10 to 15 minutes for measurements. And results give you the wall thickness of the pipeline, and if the inline, if there is one wind steel, if also the wall thickness of it. And when you get more measure points of your assets, we can help you to make some choices how to handle your assets. If you have to replace them or to postpone the replacing. So we have to help the companies in LA. Thank you.
I'll just go ahead and jump in. Good morning, everyone. This is Macaria Flores. Apologies. I think my camera, after 2 years, is sick and tired of Zoom meetings, so it's not working this morning. But I am the city executive here in Los Angeles for Arcadis. I work alongside a lot of the individuals that just spoke. We are a strong local engineering firm with a long history and with a long Dutch history. We work on various areas when it comes to infrastructure, transportation, mobility, master planning, and on the water side, resiliency, conveyance, water treatment, and also social resiliency. We are very fortunate to work alongside a lot of some of our clients that just spoke. So thank you for LADWP, the Bureau of Engineering, the sanitation, LA County, MWD, and others. And we look forward to being part of this delegation and helping connect a lot of what we do to the global stage. So thank you for having us today.
Hi, it's Erwin Meijboom from Elias Consulting. We are a consultancy for sustainability and environment, and we are creating value for life, and we really hope to impact as many lives as possible. So what we're working on, a few examples: coastal protection, where we worked on modeling sandy coasts. We work on urban resilience for the city of Rotterdam, 1.2 inhabitants, mainly on water adaptation and climate resilience. We worked on water resources, where we did a study where we looked into farmers as water managers. And our products focus is mainly on environmental services like water quality, especially contaminants of emerging concern, for example. But also we're doing environmental impact assessments, working on a sustainable climate advice, mainly focused on urban areas like mentioned before. So that's about making water management plans, which are really strategical and integrated into the city, which are actionable concerning flooding, retention, and heat stress. For example, the green roofs are famous in Rotterdam, but also working on energy and circularity. And lastly, we're doing training and innovation. Now we're having talks, for example, with Houston Port to bring in training to Europe. So what we're really aiming at for LA is, we think, closing the loop, the water cycle loop, but also shortening it. And our motto can be zero water wasted.
Hi everybody, this is Dave Burrows from HAL 24K. Just give you an introduction to what we do. We're a machine learning and data analytics laboratory. We specialize in the water industry. So we're undertaking research and development that allows water companies to better exploit their data. We draw on our experience of working with water companies in the Netherlands, in the UK, and indeed worldwide. But we're also drawing on work that we do outside of the water sector. So bringing in things such as predictive maintenance, degradation analytics from other areas. And we're finding a lot of use for the latest machine learning techniques within the water industry. To do that, we've built ourselves a series of tools and software products that we use to actually deploy solutions. We don't just produce reports, we deploy solutions onto desks and collaborate the technology you can see there. Integrate some feeds data from multiple vendors, multiple business systems, IoT sensors in there, tens or hundreds of thousands, and brings that all together into one place so we can look at the behavior of large-scale systems. So this is very much about big data. But we get involved in lots of things, including things such as computer vision, looking at blockages on water inlets, satellite imagery, non-permeable surface detection, and also modeling rivers and catchment areas as well. So in summary, we're using the latest big data ingestion, analytical machine learning techniques to perform research and find solutions in your data to environmental issues, water management issues, and of course, operational issues in water provision and distribution, and then deploy them onto people's desks so you can make bottom line changes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ankie Kamstra. I'm from High Tech Road, Holland. My colleague Cheryl from San Francisco, she will join later. We are a company specialized in road infrastructure and water infrastructure. We are specialized in sustainable soil stabilization technology, saving costs by recycling materials up to 100% and working with all kinds of normally unsuitable materials. We can make that work. We are currently participating in the Dutch Flood Protection Program, being very successful and being considered as a durable innovation, disruptive innovation for the water sector. And we are currently being established in the US. And we have a track record of over 100 years with our shareholders in Europe, mainly in Holland, Germany, Switzerland, France, and also the Dutch Caribbean. And so we are so excited now to expand our business to the United States. And I think we can add a lot of value to the United States infrastructure. Saving a lot of cost and in implementing our circular technology and reduce CO2 emissions by up to 50% and reduce construction time by up to 70%, but very good results. So so we are actually taking every challenge. So looking forward to work with the US stakeholders. Thank you.
So on behalf of Hydroloop, I get to do the short pitch for them here. They're actually not here because they're in the process of installing their first US-based system. So that's as good excuse as any for the absence. They make a decentralized gray water recycling system for both residential and industrial use without using filters, membranes, or chemicals during the cleaning process. You can see some of the savings that can be realized there on the screen. And I don't think they would tout their horn as much as I can do because I'm talking about them now. So awards mean nothing unless you win. And they absolutely cleaned up at the recent Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, where they won awards for Best Sustainability Innovation, Best Startup, and my favorite award, Best of the Best. So it's actually the title of the award. I didn't make this up, it's real. So these guys are really sort of making strides, and I know that Mark Rico from Hydroloop is going to join us later. So.
Hi, my name is Matthijs Bouw. I'm the founder of One Architecture and Urbanism. We are a global leading design firm for all things climate and by extension water, with main offices in Amsterdam and New York. And in the last decade, we've learned the unique role that design can play in complex infrastructure projects. We've learned that beyond the coastal resiliency projects, which started our US practice, we are the designer of Manhattan's flood protection projects. And we've learned that design can be an integrator, and it can really help collaborations between disciplines, between governments, between stakeholders, and with communities, which are really critical in trying to deal with the sort of new challenges that come with the climate crisis. But we also know how design can be an innovator. So we've expanded the work to work in integrated water management, nature-based solutions, as well as energy, using the similar tools that we've used in coastal resilience, and always with a keen focus on justice, public health, and equity. And because we both help on a strategic and programmatic level and do design of the actual projects, we also have been able to offer the feedback between thinking about what needs to be done and how to deliver it, and, to be honest, how to operate it. Thank you very much.
So Royal Haskoning DHV was not able to join us today because of an illness. But I'll just mention that they are a leader in engineering and innovative systems for wastewater treatment and coastal resilience. So now switching gears, and I think hopefully making up a little bit of time since we're running a little late, I'm going to talk about the Charrette format. What does this mean? So in the next 30 or actually 26 minutes, we're going to have the first of our 3 breakout discussions. And as I'm talking, please feel free to rename yourself with a 1 or 2 at the beginning of your name to put it in the chat, which discussion you'd like to be part of. Some people have already been pre-assigned based on their expertise or interests. And last, you'll be able to join the breakout discussions directly yourself. You'll have an option when they open. So what we're doing is dividing up into 2 groups, and we'll take 26 minutes or approximately that amount of time to have a conversation. And we have a couple of LA stakeholders who have been tapped to share a bit about the work that they're doing. So the hope is that in these sessions, we will first hear from our LA stakeholders, what they're working on, what are some of the challenges they face, what are some of the opportunities they see related to the theme of the discussion. And then we'll have a good bit of time for questions, for clarifications, for dialogue between all the participants in the breakout. And we will give you a heads up when they're closing, and we'll come back here after the first one. We will have a coffee break, which may be more like a stretch break, and we'll proceed. So we'll see everyone back here at 9:35 when we go into the second breakout. So I think with that, we can open the breakout rooms. I will be heading over to actionable data and analytics and see many of you on the other side.
Perfect. Yeah, no, so I work at Metropolitan Water District. I'm the manager of rates, charges, and financial planning. Thanks for having this really wonderful event. Really exciting to connect with international peers and innovators. In data and analytics, I think it's a really exciting time in water in California. Metropolitan partners with a number of our both locally and across the state and with the state on a number of efforts. One is the state of California passed some legislation a couple years ago, the Open and Transparent Water Data Act, that requires state agencies to publish their data sets in a machine readable and accessible way. And there's a nonprofit that's been formed, of which Metropolitan is on the, or Devin Ipade is on the board, our executive officer. And I serve on the steering committee of this organization. And the underlying goal of is to help facilitate conversations across the state and help support these efforts of the state agencies to open up this data sets that include things on water demand, water supply, and the contextual information to derive meaning from that. Additionally, Metropolitan participates in a local state effort that's across the previous nonprofits really focused on more of a statewide perspective. Additionally, local agencies can derive a lot of value from the data that they have, but there's often a lot of challenges with cleaning up that data, and so that we can use some of the great tools that were talked about, things like machine learning and things like that, that can be really powerful analytics. And so Metropolitan and a number, over a dozen different agencies formed a nonprofit called the California Data Collaborative, that's working collaboratively with basically a nonprofit organization that has data scientists who help provide that support to clean up the data so that we can put it to use, and develop a number of open source analytics. And this isn't data that's public, it's personally identifiable, like individual water use data, but we can get a lot of value from using that data to look at impacts of different policies, conservation actions, and it's been a really exciting effort over the last 6 years now, that represents state agencies across the state, from Bay Area and across Southern California, and Sacramento. But those are some efforts. Metropolitan is also is also doing some internal innovation efforts to look in how we can better use the data that we have. And these external organizations have really helped us with those conversations as well. But I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time, and really looking forward to learn more about the efforts from the Dutch and others on data analytics. Thanks.
Thanks, Drew. Sergio, do you want to take over for a few minutes? And everyone else, feel free to open your cameras if that's something that's comfortable for you. I think it makes this more interactive. Let's see. Sergio, we can see you, but we can't hear you yet. Perfect.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I was doing double. I got distracted for a little bit, so apologize. Our budgets are due today, so I'm bouncing around back and forth. So guide me a little bit because I missed the last 10 minutes here. So
yeah, we're just taking a minute, well, 3 minutes. If you want to share a bit about the work that you're doing around data and analytics, some of the challenges you're currently facing and opportunities that you see in the area.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. No. So, I mean, we have one of the newer things that we're working on is trying to implement a formal asset management effort. And we're trying to really manage our infrastructure and really feed our capital planning. So analytics plays a lot in that, in trying to get us to the point where we can have better insight into our infrastructure. And so a lot of the effort that we've done here in the last year, we kind of picked a couple of focus areas, and one of the areas that that we want to look at is our billing meters. There's a lot of focus on water loss, and making sure that you know, we don't have leaky pipes, you know, and so one of the things that we actually because for a water wholesaler, it's very difficult to see, you know, problems with, I mean, we don't get the entire picture. So one of the things that we actually did a trial run is to look at patterns and look at the patterns in our flows and flag when a pattern of flow it seems odd, and that report goes to our operators, and then they can actually look and put suspect meters for further investigation. So, and one of the things that we ended up finding out as collaborating with our member agencies is that one of our member agencies actually had a turbocharged version of that, because they had actually were part of some data analytics alliance. And so it's kind of an exciting area for us to kind of look at, and we actually consider this you know, first view, maybe even our first candidate for some machine learning, where we can kind of put some thought to try to pre-diagnose these meters before they're a problem. That's a big issue for us. So
Thanks. I wonder if there's some questions from our Dutch firms in the room. Yes, Dave.
Well, it was inevitable, wasn't it, Justine? Hi, a question here for Sergio, actually. You mentioned there, you've been looking at what we would call them as smart meters, billing meters. Are they domestic? Are they business to business?
Are they what?
Are they domestic meters, or are they sort of business meters?
No, they're business meters. So we're a water wholesaler. So the other nuance is that our meters are huge. So we don't have as many as a retail agency, but they're very large. They can be, 3 feet in diameter or more. We even have 12-foot diameter pipe. But yeah, they're business meters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've been doing, well, actually, right now we're doing a little bit of work as well, but I can't name names. But we're looking at, how business usage varies, and can you predict and see normal patterns? And I don't know if you're finding the same, but we're finding you almost have to do it, well, sometimes on a customer by customer basis. Sometimes it's on a sector and size. You have to find a pertinent scaler. But given that information, you can start to see real patterns within of history and spot the abnormal things. And sometimes it's abnormal in the sense the customer didn't expect it, and sometimes it's just abnormal in that they do expect it. But you can start to see patterns. So yeah, we'd be very interested in, well, if nothing else, talking to you and sharing with you some experience on that.
No, that would be great, because like I said, this started off as a thought. Well, one, our frustration that we usually find these meter problems after our customer complains about them, and so we wanted to kind of move towards something where we find them ourselves. And so no, be very interested to talk further about that. So
yeah, well, we'll definitely hook up on that one.
And I apologize if you hear snoring behind me. It's my bulldog, and so.
Excellent.
I might have been wondering. Are there others from LA who want to chime in here? I know we have a lot of folks in the room.
Yeah, I have a question as well. I think I'm not from LA, but from Dutch.
Yeah.
You talked already about the laws of water, but do you also have, and we did some prevention measurements about the assets? And do you have some? Do you know what the conditions are from the of your assets? And do you have some tools for store the data, or something like that?
So let me see if I heard you correct. So you're asking if we have or condition data for our assets, and where do we store it? So we do have. We do have condition data. One of the areas that we kind of focus is on vibration and oil analysis. We do have our inspection records. And right now, they're in different data sources. So that's one of the efforts to try to connect this. As part of our asset management and really revamping our maintenance management, we're kind of looking at how we can pull all this together. But we also, one of the things that we don't have, like, for example, a criticality, an overall criticality, or, because we had to make meaning from all of this. The other thing too, that just where we're at is that, we have this asset management effort that's right now has made a lot of progress in integrating with our capital improvement, planning, but our O&M side here, our maintenance needs to catch up so that they merge. So we have some. We actually have a lot of data, but they're not in one repository.
Great, thanks.
Thanks. I wonder if some of the other agencies have perspectives that they want to bring in related to the questions as well.
Sure. Hi, Justine and fellow delegates. My name is Kuhn Nguyen. I'm with LA County Public Works. We are working on stormwater planning division. My primary role is I oversee the integrated planning and implementation of flood control and flood risk management projects for our coastal watersheds. For those of you who are not familiar with the LA area, that goes as far north for the Santa Monica Bay, basically from Malibu to the Palos Verdes Peninsula. And it also includes and involves extensive collaboration with our sister agencies and other municipalities within a region to implement multi-benefit stormwater capture projects. For those of you who don't know, the flood control district, stormwater planning is the planning arm of the flood control district. We were formed by the California state legislature in 1915. The flood control district operates 14 water conservation dams. We have 27 groundwater replenishment facilities. This is where flood control releases are made from these dams to these facilities for groundwater replenishment. We capture and conserve 1/3 of the region's potable water supply. We are not, and then that water is down to the aquifers. They are extracted by the purveyors and sold into potable reuse. But we also have an extensive network of rain gauges, stream flow gauging stations, and that data is collected via a SCADA system. We have an acronym for our system. It's ALERT, A-L-E-R-T. It's automated local evaluation of real time, and the data is collected via radio frequency assigned by the Federal Communications Commission. And all of that data is collected and managed by our stormwater engineering division. And we have a hydrologic records unit dating back to when we started collecting all the data. So we know how much water is conserved. We know the storage capacity of all of our dams and reservoir, how much water is captured and replenished at each of the groundwater conservation facilities. And for us in general, I like a couple of the notable projects that we are currently actually working on. We have a public-private partnership with the Ocean Cleanup, who's based in Rotterdam, Netherlands. The signing ceremony for that partnership agreement happened in November of 2019. It was attended by the Dutch Director General for the Environment and the International Affair, Roel Lapierre, and with also representative from Juice Dubois, the Ocean Cleanup, and our supervisor, Janice Hahn, and our Director of Public Works, Mark Estrella, is in attendance as that. So that's a project with the Ocean Cleanup to deploy a trash interceptor at the mouth of Bayona Creek. And it is a Public Works in conjunction with the Flood Control District, and we are the engineering arm for Public Works from a water conservation and flood control standpoint to address trash and help keep our beaches sustainable and prevent the trash from getting to the ocean. Our other notable project is the Oxford Retention Basin project. It is roughly a 42-acre site that is a flood control retention basin, but it's a multi-use project which recently received recognition from the Institute of Sustainable Infrastructure as a platinum certification for what the project is doing. So it has 2 storm drains that directly discharges water into it, and then it helps protect the local area from flooding. And then after the storm subsides, there's a seawater gate that discharges the water into the Marina Del Rey Harbor, which is a man-made harbor in the Marina Del Rey area. So that's some of what I'm working on. I think data-wise, we collect our data. I think, Dave, you had some questions?
Sure, I'll ask at the end though. Please do carry on. I'll ask at the end.
That's all I have. Those are some of the notable key things we're working on. We work. I'm also on the steering committee for our Safe Clean Water program, which is a parcel tax funded. We have LiDAR data, and it's taxable per parcel. This program was approved by the Los Angeles County voters in November of 2018. The program generates upwards of $284 million for the region to address stormwater capture and reuse projects. And these are opportunities for us to help to that zero waste, to help with resiliency planning projects for underserved communities, and looking at regional opportunities to help capture and replenish the local water supply and reduce our reliance on imported sources such as the water from the Colorado River, Northern California, working in conjunctions, and all the municipalities that were presented spoke this morning. So the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, the Sanitation District, and MWD all have representation on the various watershed area steering committees for the Safe Clean Water Program. That's all I have, Justine. I'm ready for questions.
Thanks. I'm just noting we've got about 3.5 minutes left. So if there are burning comments that other LA folks want to make, maybe let's try to keep our comments really short, and I'll open the floor, and then we can go back to questions from Dave. No? Okay, Dave, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Everyone else is listening.
I'm sorry. I hate it's my topic, so I've got to do this. Right? But yeah, I was just wondering whether you were using hydro modeling alongside machine learning modeling for things such as catchment area, river impact, and sedimentation impact. Is that something you've looked at? Because we're getting a lot of success with using machine learning as well as hydro.
So most of the major flood infrastructure in the United States was constructed by the United States Army Corps of Engineers and turned over to the local municipalities for operations and maintenance. The Corps still maintains, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers maintains their major infrastructure, but we are the local entity responsible. So we use HEC-RAS, which is the core program. We do hydraulic modeling. We complement that data with studies to model the characteristic. With the development and urbanization comes reduced permeability, and then increased water. So we are looking at the resiliency and improvement. We also have a condition assessment of our aging infrastructure, so that's ongoing, and we actually have cameras, and actually some of our storm drains, we have miles and miles of underground storm drains, and we actually have a routine over a 3-year period that they actually use cameras to inspect the storm drains, or some of them that are big enough, they actually have an underground crew that physically goes in there and inspects those storm drains.
Okay. We're starting to use machine learning as well as hydro modeling to look at things like flooding and overspills, I might be interested in just chatting around that. And the other thing is, do you do any surveying or auditing with satellites for non-permeable surfaces? Is that something you?
We use a program called LiDAR. So via satellite, that's how the parcel tax program for our Safe Clean Water was done. And then there's an opportunity for, we recognize that it's not 99.99% accurate. So there's an opportunity for residents to appeal their assessment of their property. Sometimes, those cameras may be off, and then we actually send a staff out to field verify the permeable versus impermeable area, because that's how the tax is based on.
Yeah, thank you. Great.
Okay.
So I think we're almost out of time to go back, but maybe a question that I have to follow up is for the LA partners. What kinds of services would you be looking for that would go beyond your current LA contractors or the current parties you're working with? Something to think about as we all get booted back into the main room. Oh no, we have 114 seconds. So if someone wants to take a stab at answering that, please do.
Mum's the word. I can definitely share that we have, a staff of 4,000 employees, and we have engineering staff to undertake most of the work that we do. However, when we don't, we have, because we're a public entity, we don't have the ability to just go to any particular firm. We have a qualification-based selection process, and then these agreements are reviewed based on the qualification and experience of the various firms, and then these contracts are awarded by our elected governing body, and that takes time. But there is a RFP process, and everything's posted on doing business with the county. I can help share that information, but we look forward. I think innovation drives competition. It's great to have the opportunity to work with foreign companies who are based in the United States, and I think with the expertise that the Netherlands has with your extensive water infrastructure, some of the firms you have, it definitely could help with our condition assessment. But some of the firms that we work with locally also have those in-house expertise, or they consult out as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're all headed back to the main room. Thank you for that comment and response. And when we get back there, we will take some time to. Okay, this is terrific because it's recording already. And last time I almost forgot to record. So, David, I think you had slides you wanted to share. Do you want to see if we can get those going first? Let me make sure.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too. So, Makaria, you have a working camera. That's wonderful. Oh, and your slides are good. I didn't see a way to give you permission, so that's perfect. I think let's dive in. So, in case we have anyone new in the room, we're going to start this round with 2 brief sets of remarks. David is going to share some comments, and then we'll go to Warren, and then we'll open the floor for questions and discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Justine. I'll try to be really brief here. My name is David Katzev. I'm actually not in LA. I'm in the Oakland area. I work at the East Bay Municipal Utility District. I'm the leader of our pipeline rebuild program here. And Peggy and Wiggs invited me to this, and I'm really happy to be here. So really briefly, what we're doing up at East Bay Mud right now is we're creating, together with UC Berkeley, a center for smart infrastructure. The challenges that you see on the screen are really, what's been discussed already today, from infrastructure to climate change to changing societal demands. These are just common challenges that we're all dealing with. So what are we doing here at East Bay Mud? We're working with Professor Kenichi Soga, who this is a picture of him on the right there. And the Center for Smart Infrastructure that we're creating here is really about innovation. It's providing solutions that are smart, that are intelligent, that we can monitor and that we can adapt, what we do in the future in terms of our capital plans here at East Bay Mud. So the innovation ecosystem that we're creating is utility owners, it's academia. Those are the 2 that we're really starting with, but then we're bringing in, regulators, consultants, information technology. It's a really holistic ecosystem that we're creating, all about innovation, all about yielding results and creating a smart infrastructure market. What are we starting with? We have a warehouse. Well, it's not really a warehouse, but it looks like a warehouse right now, but it's a really large building on the UC Berkeley campus, their Richmond Field Station, which is close to the SF Bay. And we've actually taken the large basin fault rupture test apparatus that was set up at Cornell University, which is pictured here. We've taken that apart and we've moved it across the country, and we're putting it back together in this warehouse. And this is just an image as to what it looks like right now. This is the warehouse down here on the right, and we're in the process of putting it together. So we're building this center for smart infrastructure, and we've just started. These are just some models that we're going to be doing. We're starting off with pipe testing because that's something that's a big demand. right now, just, creating that resilient infrastructure. We're starting off with some things that we know we can get some success with, but then we're just going to grow from there. And we're bringing in together other utility partners into the picture. We're really teaming with academia here. So Berkeley has a number of different departments within the College of Engineering and even outside of the engineering that we are going to collaborate with and link together people that work at East Bay Mud with UC Berkeley and other utilities. This next year is really about exploring all of those different opportunities that exist at UC Berkeley. And so this is for the first year, this is really what we're going to start off with. We have a phased approach. Phase 1 is really about pipeline testing. And I'm actively working with UC Berkeley and setting up our first tests right now. And phase 2, we're going to expand the facility into other areas, other niches there. And then phase 3 really is that the Center for Smart Infrastructure is going to be self-supporting after that. East Bay Mud is kicking it off with UC Berkeley. We've donated, or not donated, but we've agreed to support it with a $1.5 million investment. And that's what we're doing here at East Bay Mud. So hopefully that was in my time allowed there.
Thanks. Maybe let's go over to Warren for a moment.
Well, I sort of said everything I was going to say at the last breakout room, so I don't have too much to add here. Working on we have a lot of infrastructure activities, more than we could ever report here. That includes pipeline replacement programs that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars. We're replacing our pre-stressed concrete with liners. And if you look at our 2 major imported water sources, Colorado River Aqueduct and the State Water Project, we're constantly doing maintenance and upgrades on those. We're looking at ways to improve the efficiency of our pumping on the Colorado River Aqueduct. No easy task, considering that these pumps are giant, and you can't just put variable frequency drives on them. It's a major upgrade. We're looking at we have power infrastructure that we're looking at. We have a climate action plan that we're in the process of adapting, and hopefully we'll be rolling out either early next year. And that's going to set our reduction goals for greenhouse gas emissions. I think that's something that we might want to talk about later. State Water Project, the aqueduct that brings our water from Northern California to Southern California. There's subsidence issues from groundwater pumping that's affecting that aqueduct that the state's going to need to address. And then I mentioned earlier that the Bay Delta is a major effort for Metropolitan. And you may have heard of the Bay Delta Tunnel. That's an effort to move water underneath the delta instead of through it. Like I said, that delta has polders. Basically, very similar to what to what you have in the Netherlands. And that's going to be probably one of our biggest infrastructure challenges moving forward. And then, of course, we talked about our regional recycled water program, potentially the largest potable reuse project in Southern California, 150 million gallons per day. And I do have a magical card that'll convert that into cubic meters. Let's see, what is that in terms of cubic meters? 200 million cubic meters a year. So very large project. That's going to include indirect potable reuse by putting it into the ground, but also direct potable reuse by blending it with raw water upstream of our treatment plants. So that's what we have going on. We've got a lot of infrastructure projects, and I'll just leave it at that.
Thanks. That's great. I see we've got a couple folks with hands raised. Marty, do you want to go ahead?
Morning. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, if I can just add to what Warren just said, looking at urban resiliency, we import a lot of our water from Colorado River, which is in the middle of a very long-term drought, and as well as Northern California from the Delta, which is actually an inland delta about 80 miles inland from the Golden Gate Bridge, where we've got both sea level rise and land subsidence issues acting on those dikes at the same time, with about a 3-inch increased differential every year with the water coming up and the land going down. So we're starting to look at nature-based solutions there. So re-wetting the peat soils, putting in tule marshes, which is what they were originally, rice farming, as well as looking at whether regenerative agriculture, changing how farming is done on those polders happens. So, a lot of different issues, but we're also interested in the physical integrity of those dikes. So we're looking at technology ranging from using dogs to detect the presence of large rodents that burrow into those dikes, to as well as using drones and coaxial cables with sensors that we're putting in the dikes or levees, as we call them right now, to look for any slumping or movement in any direction. So there's lots of room for innovation there, and lots of problems, all of which track back to urban resiliency in the big picture. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Continue on the theme of resiliency. So I have a question for David. When are you doing your test on the pipe? We know some areas are prone to landslides, right? So the pipe usually, the way we have, especially the big one, the big pipe, I'm talking about 24, 36 inch mains, the transmission lines. We have some areas where we have landslide, and then we do have some, water breaks here and there often. How do your study, your test, or your pilot test is looking into that? Is it something that you guys are looking into to have like I would say, flexible pipe that can be resilient to landslide?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We actually have landslides up here too in the Berkeley Hills, the Oakland Hills, pretty extreme slides up here in the Bay Area as the Hayward Fault runs right through our system. So yes, we're it's hazard resilient pipelines is what we're focused on in terms of the testing. And when we do our testing, we're going to start off with the earthquake resistant ductile iron pipe. And Anselmo Collins from LA mentioned the Kubota pipe. We have meetings with the Kubota pipe company in the next month to talk about testing of their pipe as well. So any results that we get, any findings that we get, conclusions, will be directly applicable to landslide environments, earthquake environments. So we're definitely looking at that.
Great, thank you.
And just one other thing to add there, you mentioned 24, 36 inch pipe. We're starting off with the smaller pipe just to kind of get some victories in the beginning. But then we're creating tools to look at bigger pipe. We're creating machines to look at 24 inch, 36 inch pipes. So we're going to get into the large diameter pipe region.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Great, Matt, you can go ahead. We're going to open the floor if folks from the Dutch Coalition have questions for our LA stakeholders now. So you can go first.
Great, thank you. It's staggering to hear about the scale of the water reuse project that you're in the process of starting. It kind of raises the thought in my mind about the complexity that may exist in the future around choosing which resource to take and treat and bring into supply, particularly where you may have changing conditions, you talked about brine intrusion previously, so in the end, quite a complex set of variables that may make one source more attractive than another, depending on the time of day or the time of year. Have you got any intelligent control opportunities around that look at the whole thing? Is that something that you're considering? And this is perhaps a question to Warren primarily.
So one AI to rule them all, is that what you're kind of suggesting that?
Well, one AI to look at the different variables that may help you choose the most optimal source to run from. Sources.
So that's an interesting question. I don't have a great answer for you. Just the first thing I want to say is the water use management environment here in California is very fragmented. You've got water agencies, wastewater agencies, stormwater agencies, groundwater agencies, conservation districts, and they all have a piece of the pie. They all manage. So it is siloed to some effect, not always, but very much so. And even within water agencies, there's Metropolitan. We're sort of the large overall regional wholesaler. We sell water to 26 member agencies, and below that, there's hundreds of retail agencies that are also managing their own local supplies and making their own choices and optimizing their own operations. So, I love the thought, but that's kind of, I think we're very far away from there. What we do though is in our long-term planning, that is where we do and consider all different kinds of resources, and that's through our integrated resources plan. And Carlos Carrillo, who's on the call, who's here right now, will be talking about that in one of the next sessions. But that's where we use our modeling and decision support tools to say, okay, where are our gaps in terms of supply and what resources do we need? And we're doing things differently. Like there's some resources that we need no matter what happens with climate change. It's going to be things like conservation, and we have a very robust conservation program. Recycling is something that we're going to do no matter if it gets wetter or if it gets drier. No matter how much sea level rise there is, we're going to be doing recycling. We're going to be conservation. But the future is uncertain. We don't know exactly what climate change is in store for us, and so how we'd bring other resources online, that is the question. We haven't approved our large recycling water program yet. We think it will go forward. There are a lot of challenges, as you kind of bring up. We're going to be working with our LADWP partners on their recycled water project. And so that's a lot of recycled water between these two projects. And part of the challenge is going to be bringing that water from the coast to the demands where it can be used and treated. So
yeah, I've seen it not done with such complexity or such scale as your organization covers. But in northern Spain, there's a really good example of a water wholesaler who supplies to 20 different municipalities, and they have a really cool kind of management regime around. It's primarily about pumping and making sure that they're pumping at optimal times and making sure that they're supplying it under the contracts that they're committed to. But it's that principle which clearly, as our organization is in that game and can see the real potential that you can get, and actually the fact that your jobs and water managers' jobs around the world are getting so much more complex with stronger challenges coming through. So, yeah, no, interesting point to discuss if you wish.
Thanks. Erwin, you've got your hand raised. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I have a question about resilience in terms of water shortage and when there's too much water. My question is around stakeholders and the involvement of local people and organizations. So yeah, For example, we've worked a lot with local stakeholders in projects like working with farmers and landowners in managing the water, retaining the water when there is too much, and to use it in times of shortage. For example, also we've worked with greenhouse horticulture where they stored the too much water into the ground in aquifers and pump them up when they needed them. We also did a project to reuse the water from wastewater treatment plants. Instead of discharging it into the sea, it was pumped to the greenhouse horticulture where they grow the tomatoes on it. So my question is, in order also to shorten that water cycle, because my idea is that there are long water cycles in some areas. Do you have projects running, or what's your idea about involving local stakeholders into the water management? I don't know who to ask it, but
I'll take a stab. So one of our planning managers, first of all, we have programs with stakeholders within metropolitan service area and also outside of metropolitan service area with farmers. So what I was going to say is, one of our sayings is we plan for drought every day. And so our programs include exchanges with farmers. We actually own land in agricultural areas. And what we'll do is we'll pay them to fallow a portion of their land that they wouldn't normally fallow. And in return, we would get a portion of the water that they would normally get. So we have problems like that augment our water supplies off the Colorado River. And in fact, we're able to almost fill our aqueduct, even in years like this that are super dry, because of those programs. Same thing in Northern California, where we have agreements with agricultural agencies that will store water in the ground when there's surplus, when it's wet, when it's flooding. And we've had some very wet years, like 2017 and 2019 were very wet years here. We were able to put water in the ground, have our partners store the water for us. And then in dry years like this, we can pull that water out. Basically, they'll pump the water, and then we can take the water that they would normally get. They can also pump it into the aqueduct. Closer to home, we have storage programs with our local groundwater agencies, with our member agencies, to store water in the ground. They'll store water in the ground, and then in dry years they can pull it up. So yeah, we work nothing would get done without collaborating with our stakeholders. 30 years ago, we didn't have those collaborations. So one of the things that you'll probably hear Carlos talk about in the next session is, we've been on a 30-year journey developing partnerships with stakeholders within our service area and outside of our service area, specifically for shortening that water cycle that you're talking about, so that we can have water in these dry years. Without these programs, it would be not catastrophic, but our cutbacks would be that's all you'd be hearing about here in California. But because we're able to bring that water in, there are supplies, and we're not the only agency that does it. LADWP does it. Our other partners also do it. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. It's very interesting to hear about that.
Matthias, you want to jump in?
Maybe as a follow-up on this, one of the things that we see, for instance, in New York is that pipes are really important and need to be improved because there's an incredible backlog. There's a serious investment in green infrastructure for water management, and there's a lot of examples of how green infrastructure can also help you with water supply and water recycling by buffering and bringing back into the aquifer or into other systems excess water at the moments that it does rain. And one of the things that we see in New York is that also has spatial implications that could also benefit communities, right? You can redesign your parks and your roadways and your public spaces. And in those design processes, there's a lot of interaction with community, but also a lot of opportunities for teaching, helping people understand the challenges of water, etc. Could you talk to me a bit about the successes that you've had about bringing these aspects of physical resilience and social resilience together in urban environments?
I just want to highlight quickly that we have 3 minutes left, so just to create awareness about the time.
Yeah.
I'll take a stab at it again. So, and this isn't metropolitan, but our stormwater agencies, Mark Pestrello, who talked earlier, has implemented projects like you mentioned. There's one in northern city of LA called Elmer Avenue, where they took a neighborhood that was constantly flooding, and they converted it into green streets that included rain gardens. It included infiltration implementations, and that's being replicated throughout Southern California. One of the barriers to that, and also there's community benefits. They created parks, and there's been 4 or 5 projects like that scattered throughout the county of LA. They used to not be funded. Funding was always an issue for that, but there's a new law in the county of LA called Proposition W that's created a constant funding stream, and you're going to see more and more of these projects go. And you're right, architecture is everything. It includes the water storage, the connecting the community, creating opportunities for recreation and for community engagement. So you're going to see more and more of those projects in the county of LA because there's now going to be a funding stream for it. But that's metropolitan that's not one of the things that we implement, but other agencies here do.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, if I may, I mean, this is one thing that public works is leading on. So taking pretty much the stormwater, the flood protection, and then the conserving water. So what we do usually, we look at we're going to conserve water and then do the flood protection. At the same time, we emphasize on community enhancement. So through enhancing the watershed health, so that the community can live and thrive in that area. So we conserve water, and then we do the flood protection project. At the same time, we make sure that we emphasize, like you said, architecturally, emphasize on the community health in those environments. And we build, like you said, we have green street, we have parks that we renovate as part of those projects. So Public Works is the leading agency when it comes to stormwater capture. And now we have a dedicated funding, which you mentioned, is the Safe Clean Water program that have dedicated funding for those projects. So that's what we do at Public Works.
Thanks. We probably have about 2 minutes, including the countdown. So if there are any final thoughts or remarks.
Around 35 seconds.
You get another 120.
Yeah.
Yeah, Warren, what you said earlier, I'm interested. There are so many stakeholders, there are so many layers. Would you or the colleagues in the room be able to navigate or connect us to the more progressive stakeholders? Because, okay, it's not possible in this very saturated or scattered kind of situation to have solutions for everything. But it's very nice to have maybe smaller pilot examples that may be contagious to other ones eventually.
Right, so I'm not sure how to answer that question. Is Wiggs still in the room? Because he's who I would, Wiggs is not. All right, so yes, there are many progressive water agencies in Southern California that are not on this call. And I'm not sure, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how you would make those connections other than through more events like this. But also attending water conferences in the topic areas like AWWA conferences, American Water Research, AWRA and ACSE conferences is the way to meet district people who work at water agencies and who are doing these types of projects. Also, make sure that you register at Planet Bids. If you have a product or services, that's how Metropolitan, when we release a request for proposals, it's going to be through Planet Bids. And there's going to be a pre-meeting, attend those pre-meetings. And, if you've never worked with a water agency in California before, that is, being a sub for one of the primes is a great way to start working with any of the water agencies in Southern California, I would say. David, I think your agency is similar to ours, perhaps, in that regard.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, we're definitely similar. And if you wanted to get involved with some pilot projects in a smaller kind of group setting, I would just reach out to myself and I can get you involved with some other people here at East Bay Mud that are working, and then going to conferences and
Okay, terrific. Just switching us to gallery mode. So we have Carlos here, and what about Jonathan? Okay, Jonathan Long, I see you as well. So the floor is yours to make some brief comments. Would one of you like to go first, Carlos or Jonathan?
I can go ahead and go first. So should I wait for a minute, or is this just about everyone? I know we're the final show, so some people might fall off.
Yeah, it looks like let's get going because the clock is already counting down on and
perfect.
People will join us as they get sorted out.
Perfect, and I'll be quick. So hello everyone, my name is Carlos Carrillo. I'm an associate resource specialist on our resource planning team here at Metropolitan. And so I was asked to do this last minute, so I might not have answers to all your questions, but I'll do my best. So a little bit about what our team does. Our team is tasked with the unenviable job of planning for an uncertain future. And we do this through our integrated water resources plan. And so our team's core function is to develop a long-term forecast on how much water will Metropolitan need to provide our member agencies. As a reminder, we're a wholesale provider for supplemental water for the various water retails in our service area. And then we also assess our ability to meet this demand reliably with our current supply and storage program portfolios under a wide range of hydrologic assumptions. And the findings of this analysis help guide the development of policies, supply demand management programs that can address any of the vulnerabilities we may face in the future. But as I mentioned earlier, this is an unenviable task because, frankly, we only have an idea of what the future could be, but we're incapable of predicting exactly how the future will play out. So to address this, we took a little bit of a different approach this go around in our planning process by adopting a scenario planning approach. So with this approach, rather than create one forecast or our most informed guess of the future that we would plan for, we collaborated with our member agencies and stakeholders to identify what are the drivers of uncertainty that are of concern in terms of just water supply reliability for the region. And so these are things like climate change, population growth, the success and development of new local supplies for the region, like recycled water, and the effective implementation of water conservation policies at the local, state, and even federal level. And in our analysis, we look at a plausible range of outcomes in its effects on water supply and demand. And what it's important to note is that we don't make an assessment of which of these scenarios is the most likely, but rather we treat them as just that, as a plausible scenario, something that may happen given the range of outcomes and these uncertainties that we identify. And so from this, we can create an adaptive management plan where we can do two things. We identify the drivers of concern, things like climate change. So more specifically, we could look at different models on temperature, on potential changes to precipitation patterns. And we can monitor that and see, of the scenarios we have identified, as we annually track this, which one are we going towards, and what suite of actions can we develop or policies can we adopt to address that and maintain reliability. And some of these portfolio actions might be effective across all scenarios that we identify, regardless of the future. And maybe some of them are only useful in a specific scenario out of certain outcomes. So with that, that's just a brief outline as to what we do on a resource planning team. And in the interest of time, I'll move things along.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Hopefully it works. I'm gonna go a completely different direction. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, go for
Okay,
it.
perfect. So I was going to address water source management more from a testing, monitoring, and operational control standpoint. So just have 3 quick slides to illustrate some of the challenges we're dealing with. We have some aqueduct reservoirs that are a couple hundred miles long that provide some of our surface water. A lot of discussion is how reliable those sources are with the drought and different conditions. So I think there's a big push. You've heard from everyone today about developing more local supplies. But as far as the aqueducts, and MWD is familiar with this with the State Water Project in Colorado River, but a chain of reservoirs and aqueduct flows. We're always monitoring. There's new regulations on the forefront for cyanotoxins. So we tried to develop some dashboards, compiling data from different data sources to help us monitor. Also, taste and odor compounds, that's a big issue for us because even though it may not be toxic, when our customers detect this musty odor, that definitely raises their hairs and makes them concerned. We have some naturally occurring arsenic. So all this put together, we use some of our operational strategies as blending. It's still a viable form of treatment before that's not permitted, but it's allowed by our regulators. So we oftentimes will manage our flows and our reservoir elevations to try to make sure we can control this. And I guess a somewhat green way, not having to do any chemical treatments. Another area of monitoring is groundwater. So again, the groundwater aquifers, most of them in the LA County area have some form of contamination. Usually the process begins, you'll look at the wells and you'll do a baseline, you'll sample for close to 500, 600 different analytes, and then depending on what you see as part of your ongoing permit process to use these production wells, they'll do ongoing monitoring. But of course, on everybody's mind and in the news, these contaminants of emerging concern, perfluorinated compounds, the thousands of them. So that's going to be a big deal for all the agencies in Southern California to do ongoing monitoring of our well sources for that, as well as developing the testing methodologies and the sample collection methodologies, since the perfluorinated compounds are so ubiquitous. But then that relates to ultimately managing your contaminant plumes. We and others develop remediation projects where you're trying to clean out the contaminants from the groundwater. And then the various regulators from US EPA to state regulators are looking at plume movement, making sure that the projects are working as planned and not interfering with each other. So that's from the groundwater perspective. And then last, in the area of potable reuse, so we talked about the joint goals from everybody to ultimately find maximum beneficial use of our recycled water. Potable reuse regulations would probably include some framework for source monitoring, so your sewer shed, your collector system. What we're really trying to push for is some type of tools, and I think COVID-19 actually opened the international eyes on this, the ability to do more type of real-time weighted measuring, sampling directly in your system. So we're looking forward to that. We're also interested in what I don't think we have too developed here in the United States is this regulations pertaining to specific viruses. I think the World Health Organization is more focused on that than we are here in the US, but ultimately, do we develop treatment systems that can respond to the specific viruses that are detected and maybe address things such as the UV wavelength to better focus and remediate the viruses that are of concern. And again, COVID-19 kind of brings that as an example if we're using reuse. So just a couple of pictures of some technologies we're using. Nautical drones, we mentioned that in the beginning of the workshops today. Self-contained E. coli testing. This is a chamber, again, that might be helpful in public waterways. I noted there was a picture in the very beginning of folks swimming in public channels. This same company, they've been doing this in the River Seine around Paris in preparation for the Olympics. They're doing a lot of baseline sampling and ultimately with the goal of making that a viable Olympic venue. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but those are some of the issues we're dealing with as far as source monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. I'd like to open the floor if there are questions from our Dutch partners. Clarifications.
Maybe a more general one. You've seen also where the Dutch companies working on. So what do you see as a gap in your own programs and projects and work, and how we what do you see how we can fill that in? I'm looking at we're defining a sort of unique Dutch proposition, but also I'm looking at where's the need, where's the gap in current knowledge or techniques or activities.
I could take a stab at that, and from the planning perspective, especially the long-term planning perspective, because it's easier to plan for the next year because most of the things and the numbers that we're using or have available to us today are not going to change us drastically in the following year. But that's different when you're looking 25 years out. And so one of the challenges we face in developing these plans is our best tool is getting reliable numbers to paint a picture of where we're at today that usually form the foundations of long-term projections. And for our team, we have some custom models that require a lot of things like where we have to survey our member agencies to get a sense of not only how much local supplies they're producing from today from groundwater basins, recycled water projects, but what is their inventory of future projects, to treat your groundwater basins to improve its capacity in the future, to develop new recycled water projects that might face competition from, different projects competing for wastewater. And it's a lot of data to compile. And the thing with planning is, like, the longer you wait, newer numbers that are better are going to come. And so you need to kind of find that sweet spot of being able to turn that around quickly, so you're working with the most up-to-date numbers and have confidence that these numbers are going to be reliable and sound for you to base your projections off of.
I'll add, I think, a couple things, on the concept of digital twins. I think the groundwater hydrogeologic modeling is pretty complex. I think folks typically use fairly sophisticated fate transport models. And I guess depending on where you're doing your model, you may even go to very tight grid spaces, but just evolution in that. And I guess to some extent that's related to artificial intelligence and machine learning, that, it's kind of on that same space of how can you improve the analytics in forecasting of what's going on to an aquifer that could have several aquatards or many, many feet deep. But I think this affects decisions as far as, where you could effectively inject, if you're injecting recycled water or storm water. So I think that's a big topic. Also for us specifically with the cyanotoxins again, algae happens every year, and it's always kind of a stumper. You ask our biologists, well, what will make one year form the harmful cyanotoxins versus the next year it won't? And they just say, oh, it depends on a number of factors. So where I'm getting at is, I think the human mind has very little predictive power there. We're trying to pair together various forms of data, whether that's cyanotoxin data, blue-green algae data, chlorophyll, and maybe even some PCR type data to piece it all together to maybe someday actually understand why in a particular season or month things turn into a harmful algal toxin bloom.
Thanks. Yeah, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I concur with everything that you guys said. The challenge we have as a county, we're a very big county. like the director mentioned earlier. So in area was we cover like a huge area. So it is a very complex and challenging operation to, to navigate the water distribution system. So right now we're looking at all sources, like we talk about stormwater, we talk about surface groundwater and recycled water. So how do we navigate that, bring all that together through a complex system, and then bring that water to people? And that's one of the challenges that we've been working on. And then Director also talked about the county water plan, which pretty much bring all the stakeholders, MWD, LADWP, all those agencies, water agencies together, so that we can have a plan, reliable water plan for the future. But like I said, the challenge for us is to take all those, water sources and then stormwater, recycled water, surface and groundwater to bring them together through a navigated complex system so that the people can benefit from it. So those are one of the challenges that we're looking into, and we can benefit from your expertise.
Thanks. Yeah, the extents of this topic are enormous, right? So from quantity to quality to the range of sources you're looking at. Are there any other questions from our Dutch partners?
Well, Justine, maybe because it was raised in the general room, the impact of the infrastructure bill is. Does somebody like to sort of highlight how that ties into all the budgets and the plans that are already in place or might evolve from them?
Yeah, that would be great.
Or did it not make a change at all? That could also be an answer, of course.
I think for our staff that are looking at it, it's still a little early to exactly get the details on how you get projects that are eligible or to qualify. So I think there's still some decisions and some policies and things to be clarified. I mean, of course, it gets everybody excited. It's like seeing this big bank account made available and everyone would like a piece of it. But I think the rules on applying are still to be put out there. But again, shovel-ready projects typically have some, lead the way. But I think this time around, maybe some focuses on social equity, funds for disadvantaged communities. A lot has been made about lead in drinking water in the U.S. So I think those, if you would ask my opinion, those type of projects will probably be elevated in priority and more eligible.
So maybe to add a question on that. So in the bidding process, how much weight is there on social and environmental criteria, what we call in the Netherlands the MV score? So so not only to look into cost effectiveness, but also into other criteria which are more societal.
If I could touch on that, this is John Arena with Metropolitan. Just a few days ago, we have a new general manager, Adel Hashkhalil, and one of his first statements coming out, this was 5 months ago, was this concept of we are one, and the one water theme, that every drop counts. One of the things he did, and it just posted a few days ago, is he's creating an office of sustainability, resiliency, and innovation. These things have been housed throughout the district, or Metropolitan Water, and many of our agencies in what we call silos, in groups here and here and there. He really wants us to look at all the things you mentioned in our contracting, whether it's underserved communities, like Jonathan mentioned, or it's climate change, again, resiliency. So I guess with that being said, it's really being elevated to the executive level to look at the way we do things at Metropolitan, and things will change. They will absolutely change, and we will take into account those things. The other thing to mention is our chairwoman, who will be on the call in a few minutes, and Adele, our general manager, they're actually going back to DC next Tuesday for a meeting with very high-level union leaders and people from Congress, and they're going to be talking about the infrastructure money and how we tap into that. So exciting things are happening, and thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, maybe if folks aren't able to comment on exactly how they see the infrastructure bill coming to bear on their work or their agency, we could also talk about how you'd like to see it, or what projects you'd like to see emerge as a result of additional funding. Like if you got your dream for where the next steps are going for the agency. Yeah, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So I mean, like previous speaker said, we don't have the detail yet of the infrastructure bill, but obviously we know that we we'll be benefiting from it, especially when we look at the aging infrastructure, right? So we probably, especially for water system, the pipes are old, so we need those to be replaced at some point, and this infrastructure bill will help do that. Changing the aging infrastructure. So we don't have the details yet, but obviously we're going to be benefiting from it. And then also I would like to mention the equity and social justice that we're talking about. And our director, Mark Purcell, mentioned that earlier in his opening remarks. That's something that, there to the county, all our project, we look into those lanes to make sure that we're equitable. We go to areas that where it can benefit, the underserved communities. So all those aspects have been taken care of throughout our projects as a holistic approach that we, for the public works.
I can make a comment on this, and I apologize. We're as a planning team, we're more on the theoretical side. But one of the things that, in terms of a need, which was a question that was asked earlier, I'd mentioned being able to process data quickly, but also, developing a standardized method to quantify the impacts of what our agency is saying are concerning to future water supply reliability. And one of the concerns was the availability of funding to not only build, the projects, the local supply projects, or even replace aging infrastructure. It's hard for us as planners to kind of quantify that. Like, if we know that there's this bill coming, how do we quantify the range of impact? How do we eventually turn that into, a range of potential water supply being developed from groundwater basins here locally? That's one of our major challenges, and what we're working with right now is just professional judgment, just kind of making an eyeball assessment. But if there's a way to take a look at things like infrastructure bills and their impacts in terms of ranges of potential outcomes in water supply available for the region, that would be something very helpful for planning efforts in the long run.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, Makaria.
Thank you. So I've been shepherding and have working alongside a lot of the individuals that are crafting the language, as well as some of the shovel-ready projects for funding. The one thing that I would say is that we have to be patient. This funding isn't going to come overnight. I think all of us are expecting it to drop January 1st. But with my public policy experience, it's going to take a while. But one thing that this community can do, and it's something that Arcadis has been doing, is helping a lot of our clients bring these projects to become shovel ready. A lot of time they need help with the actual project description, the scope, some of the soft and technical engineering that needs to get done to get that project from a concept to a shovel-ready project. So there's a lot of things that we as this community can do to help these agencies get these projects ready, because at the end of the day, it's a list, and that money is going to get sent over to that agency, and then it's going to be sent out to an RFP or a bid. But we've been working on this for, like 2 years in different reiterations. So I think the key word is to have patience, because it does take a long time.
Thanks. I think, it also highlights the importance of being able to understand implementation at the earliest stages of project development or definition. there any other questions? We have actually a good bit of time. Or topics that you feel maybe we didn't cover. I think that's another important point. Peter, you look like you
maybe a sort of general question about idea forming and the bidding process. So how much of this process is demand driven and how much is supply driven? So if we come up with good ideas within this consortium, how can we address it to the agencies? And on the other hand, from the demand side, so is it all demand driven, or do you have processes also where you form a project together, bringing in the ideas from the future possible partners? So more of a dialogue process.
Well, I would say that if we believe we have an innovative idea and we get together as a group, the easiest way to get in front of the agency is through what Warren just mentioned, that innovation, the Office of Innovation and Affairs. They will take up really good ideas that are innovative that they can fund. We're not talking about transportation, but LA Metro has had that same office for quite some time. And a lot of people have been able to get into that agency that way. With Adel Heshkhalil's leadership, he is marrying that as well. So that is a good way to enter the office or the agency. These are public funds, so you can't just knock on the door and say, I have an idea, give me a blank check. Unfortunately, a lot of people have come to me to ask me, can't we just go to the general manager and say we have a project? Unfortunately, it has to be procured. It has to go through an RFP, but there are avenues.
Yeah, thank you, Macaria. That's a good way. I mean, it's we're government agency. The way the procurement works is through the bidding process. So the best shot for your company is to get, on the shadow of a local company, all right, so that it can, go through the bidding process along with you guys, and then, we vet, and then we make up the list. And then now the project managers or public works will now identify some project that they feel the need for you. They will consult you and then go from there. So technically, you have to go through the public bidding process to get on the list for public works. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that and confirming that again. And I think we are very aware that, we're not here just to make a contract with you guys. It's a long process. John Arena mentioned it many times. So that's what we're doing here. What I'm wondering from the presentation or from what you know about the Netherlands, there's some expertise in the room here, but what really sort of made you excited about things that we're doing in the Netherlands, whether it's from policy level, infrastructure level, or technology level? Is there anything you feel like, hey, that's really something we would like to learn more about? And I'm also saying that because in future meetings, we might be able to easily get policymakers in the room. We were able to get water agencies from the Netherlands in the room, or we might even get other companies in the room. We basically, with John Top also in the room here, and with the people in the room, we were very easily able to get expertise in the future breakout rooms that we're going to have.
Jan or John, you both look like you'd like to comment on this.
Yeah, maybe to quickly add, because it was mentioned earlier by, I believe, Jonathan, you mentioned that that you said, okay, there is interest in groundwater hydrological modeling and digital twins. Maybe it's just interesting to mention that currently there is a research project going on between where a comparison has been made between the groundwater management policy in place in the Netherlands and the groundwater management policy in place in California. That is a collaboration between DWR, the Department of Water Resources, and Deltares. and currently we're drafting a glossy of that particular comparison. So when it comes to more information about that, we can definitely share some more info on that.
Sounds like it would be great.
I'll just add a comment on contracts because we're Santa Claus. So I say for us, when we're doing what you would call like a pilot trial evaluation, we have some flexibility. We actually do, these are typically smaller dollar amount procurements, but it's really to demonstrate the viability of a technology or process. And we actually, in a procurement, we're lucky enough we can justify those on a sole source basis if there's something very proprietary or distinct about your software, product, or technology. So we've been able to do that. But then I would suggest that for larger build outs or larger scale, traditionally we as an agency did design, bid, build or RFPs, but more and more I think there's somebody mentioned P3s, public-private partnerships. Our cities certainly seem to open up to the.
We're almost at the end of our long morning, afternoon, evening session. I'm really impressed with all the people who started to join at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's a long one for the early morning.
Justine, just practical. Are you still recording? Because then I'll stop recording here.
I think I see a recording ongoing, so you can go ahead and stop. And if that also shuts off the recording of the whole session, we'll know.
And then I'll turn it back on. I'll just, really jump into that situation.
So
no, I'm just not going to touch it.
Don't touch it. That's the safest. Copies of everything. So we have a few minutes. I think we have some time for reflections or comments from the breakouts about the nature of the breakouts themselves or things that you learned. I can call on people, but I can also open the floor if anyone wants to. Go ahead.
I'll start. I won't be shy. John shared with us that there's a hydrogeologic groundwater modeling partnership between California Department of Water Resources and an entity in the Netherlands. So we would be interested to find out more about that and how that's going. So thanks for letting us know about that, John.
Yeah, I will. Deltaris. Deltaris is the research company doing a lot of work with the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management in the Netherlands. And yeah, I will share that with you.
John, if you could share that with us too, County Public Works.
Yeah, I think, what we'll do is pull together some of the notes, not detailed notes. We'll make you read through the back and forth of the breakout sessions, but high level and list of participants that we can share out coming out of this event.
And we also get some really useful information in the chat with some useful links, which we'll share also with the other groups.
That's great. So from our Dutch partners, would anyone like to reflect? I know Dave or Peter, you had indicated you might have some comments at this moment.
Oh, sure. First of all, I think this was a fantastic charrette. This was also, as our consul said, my first charrette, but I'm really impressed with the people in the room and the knowledge that we have combined here. And I think I hope I speak for the collaboration that we have heard in, at least in the breakout rooms that I was present in, and I'm sure also in the others, that there is a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of overlap with the needs and from the LA partners and what knowledge and offerings there are in this collaboration. And I was very happy to hear that there are opportunities, even though some might take longer, some might be more quicker to address, like smaller projects. Bigger projects might take longer, but we have a strong partnership with people already on the ground in LA and new people coming in, and I was also, from a personal background from Hall 24K, happy that they're in several regions within the breakout rooms already. A lot of innovation is ongoing, and people are thinking about innovating a traditionally, well, I wouldn't say old-fashioned, but definitely an aging infrastructure and management. So that is all very good news, I think, for this collaboration. And I am personally looking very forward to talking more in depth offline, well, online, but out of this room, and discuss the opportunities with many of you. So I think if you want to know something more specific, I can address that too. But I think I'll leave it here and see what others have to say.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's a point to make in general. If there are folks you'd like to follow up with after this session, we hope that this is just the beginning of conversations, perhaps between agencies or departments, that you realize you have more overlaps in your work than previously, between Dutch stakeholders and LA stakeholders. That would be really wonderful. Peter, I see you've unmuted. Do you want to go ahead?
No, I was actually, I would love to hear a little bit more about it, because I could only be in one half of the breakout. So I'm very interested to hear from the others, and maybe from our guests as well, and Carpenter and all the others as well. Great, you're here. How did you experience it? Any sort of things you took away from this already?
Well, hi, Peter. For me, it was a great experience to be included as one of the non sort of agency representative of what's going on here. But it's great to see Dutch companies that are interested in putting in the time and effort for the long haul to help solve some of the challenges, because knowing from experience that these are very long tail projects that take a lot of relationship building over time. So to me, events like this help start that layering process to build those relationships. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think we could have said that more up front, but we all recognize that, it's not like out of the Zoom and into the kickoff meeting, that there is a long process of thinking about who local collaborators could be. Rarely are these firms self-sufficient to go pursue work in a new market alone. So we need to collaborate. We need to have local partners. We need to understand, how we can help identify projects that are appropriate for our skills or services, and also ideally, ultimately, to influence the trajectory. I see that we have Chairwoman Gloria Gray in the room, so I think she wanted to make some remarks, and I will hand over the floor to her. John, did you want to jump in?
Just a quick introduction of the chairwoman as she comes on camera. I've known her a long time, personally and professionally, and she's a very special person, and we're very honored to have her today. Not only is she the chairwoman of the Metropolitan Water District that has 38 board members, but she also represents the West Basin Metropolitan Water District. She's the first African-American woman to be chair of the Metropolitan Board in its 90+ years. And she's only the second woman to ever chair the Metropolitan Water District. This is an enormous achievement in her career. It's a long list of accolades from serving on blue ribbon committees at the state level. Governors have appointed her to. Just so many to mention. But again, we're honored to have her today because, like the Consul General said this morning, it all started with her back in June and her setting up the tour of the recycling plant and other leaders. And it's just great to have her today to wrap things up as we conclude the road to Los Angeles. So with that, Chairwoman Gray.
I think it's good morning, still good morning or good afternoon. Thank you so much for letting me speak today. I'm at an aqua conference, so I'm multitasking, but I'm very happy to be here on Zoom to say thank you all for being here today. I know the conference or the workshop has been rewarding to everyone, and I'm very glad to have this opportunity to say a few words before you conclude today's meeting. I am sure that your discussions have been productive and informative. I'm also hopeful they have opened doors to new ideas about the many ways we can continue to collaborate. We in the water industry are at an important crossroads. We must address future economic and environmental uncertainties and improve water supply reliability for the 19 million people in tens of thousands of businesses here in Southern California. The old ways of doing business are quickly changing, and we need to look at the new solutions through a lens of innovation. Here in Metropolitan, we have a long and very proud legacy of fostering this culture of innovation. We continually work with our member agencies and partners in the clean tech and business industry to take full advantages of these opportunities. And we appreciate hearing the global perspective from meetings with all of you and other groups from around the world. We know that it is a challenge for many government agencies to invest directly in the development of new technologies. That's why Metropolitan is also looking for ways to partner with others and help accelerate progress with funding for innovative strategies to increase the diversity of our region's supply. From research to implementation to evaluation, these efforts help us advance the technologies we need to prepare for tomorrow's water supply challenges. It is becoming increasingly difficult for technology developers to find suitable partners to support the development and commercialization of early stage technology. By working together, new promising technologies are being developed and shared and adopted. Technologies that in some cases can and will change the game, if not the world we live in, for us, for the better. So thank you all for all you're doing. We hope this has been the next step in our continuing conversation to take full advantage of the trends that are driving change and innovation in the water industry. And I hope to see all of you in person at some point. Thank you to the Netherlands delegation for being a part of this discussion, this meeting. And thank you, John Marino and Metropolitan staff and everyone who attended today's meeting. And look forward to future collaborations and partnerships with everyone. So have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Justine, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you joining at the end of this session. So at this stage, we're nearly at the end of our time, and I think your remarks are so important. You know, hopefully this is the first of many conversations and not the last. I am going to hand things over to Ariane to close us out for today's charrette.
Thank you, Justine, and thank you, Chairwoman Gray. We very much appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here and to emphasize the importance of what we're trying to do here and accomplish here together. So I think that in itself is one accomplishment that we can attribute to this collaboration. I get to close it out, but of course it's not a close. It's more than anything. It's a first step towards activities that we hope to be doing moving forward. When it comes to sort of the household activities, there'll be a summary. and we will share that amongst the various participants. We will also make sure that a lot of the resources that were mentioned and offered, particularly from our LA counterparts, will also be in that report, so that we have a sort of, a Bible, if you will, of how to proceed in the water sector in LA moving forward, that we can use as a basis for future discussions. We will reach out back to the group, specifically to the Dutchies, for follow-up activities. So again, don't be mistaken that this is the end. This is definitely the beginning. For myself personally, when we started this, it was still very much a work in progress. So I need to be very appreciative of the input from some of the co-collaborators, from Peter, from Milan, from the NBSO, from Jan, from the consulate, and of course today from Consul General Dirk Jansen. A lot of work and a lot of credit also goes to Justine and Lot from One Architecture. You guys did an amazing job in pulling this all together and getting everybody around the table. I didn't get a chance to do the introductions on both of you. I wanted to share two little tidbits because, I think they're worth mentioning. Justine, nobody ever talks about their own sort of, accomplishments, but I think the fact that, you have your degree from Columbia University is worth mentioning here. And I understand that before that, you also went to a small community college in Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken. I forget the name. Harvard, you went to Harvard, right? Exactly. So I think, that effort in itself is worth mentioning. Lot, for you, I love the fact that you were selected to be part of the top 100 civil servants in the Netherlands on the ranking this year. And then immediately as a response to that, thanked for the honor and then went into the private sector. I think, as a former civil servant, I'm not sure what that means, but I'm glad that you made that choice and that we are and that we benefit because of that. So thank you both for the amazing work that you did. Leaves me to thank John and your team. John, you guys have been amazing. You guys, like I said, this is my first charrette as well. It is by far the best I've ever done. So don't let the fact that this is the only one take anything away from that. You, Peggy, Warren, Wiggs, throughout the process, you guys have been amazing help. And we're looking forward to building on that relationship going forward. So for now, for all of you, good morning, good afternoon, good night, and we'll be in touch soon. And thank you so much for your participation.